I got back a day early from a medical workshop to find 90 people in my house under a banner. Family means forever. My parents and brother were hosting a massive reunion without me. I didn't make a scene. I did this instead 2 weeks later. I had 105 missed calls, and my brother was screaming. By the time I turned onto my street, all I could think about was my bed. I was bone tired. My back hurt from 3 days of bad conference chairs. And my neck was still sore from demonstrating posture correction on strangers. So, when I saw their line of cars crowding both sides of the street, I let out a sigh. SUVs, minivans, a lifted truck parked half on the lawn. Someone had definitely invited half the state over. I figured it was a neighbor thing, probably a birthday, or one of those barbecues where uncles you've never met stand around and yell at ribs. I was still scanning for a parking spot when I glanced toward my house, and everything in my body tensed. There were people inside. I saw movement through the living room window. A man passed by with a plate of food. Someone else opened the fridge. There were voices, laughter. The porch door was cracked open. Someone shouted, "Desserts are inside." I slammed on the brakes. My stomach dropped so fast I felt it in my knees. There were strangers in my house. My first thought wasn't betrayal. It wasn't even confusion. It was danger. I parked a little further down away from the crowd and left my luggage in the trunk. I gripped my keys, not as a weapon exactly, but something solid to hold onto while my brain tried to make sense of what I'd just seen. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was the wrong house. As if my porch suddenly moved 3 doors down. Maybe someone broke in. Maybe it was some kind of horrible mix-up. Urban squatters. A wrong address. I walked fast but quiet, and not tightening in my chest with every step. And then just as I reached the hedge, I saw it. My parents' car parked neatly at the curb like they were just visiting. I froze. A rush of relief washed through me so fast I almost laughed. Not intruders. Not squatters. Not a robbery. My parents were here. For a second. Just a second. I felt okay. Still confused, but not scared. I stepped closer, trying to make sense of the voices and the noise. And then I saw it. A huge white banner stretched across the porch. Family means forever. Curly red letters. Floral decorations on the corners. Some poor relative must have stayed up all night crafting it like this was a wedding reception. And under that banner there they were. My mom, Janice, smiling with a lemonade in one hand and a plate of potato salad in the other. My dad, Lou, parked in one of my lawn chairs like a satisfied landlord. And right in the center of it all, Gray, my brother, grinning, hosting, wearing a shirt that matched half the people in the yard. It wasn't a break-in. It was a party. A reunion, a full-scale, catered, coordinated family reunion in my house without me. No one had seen me yet. I stood behind the hedge like a trespasser, watch my family wander across my grass, carry my dishes, sit in my chairs. Cousins I hadn't seen in years, aunts and uncles, second cousins, their kids, all of them invited except me. I didn't cry, I didn't yell, I didn't make a scene. I just turned around, walked back to my car, calm on the outside, numb on the inside. I drove nowhere in particular. I ended up at a cheap hotel with buzzing lights and a suspicious stain on the curtain. Paid cash, didn't unpack. I lay there fully dressed, shoes still on, listening to the air conditioner rattle and thinking about one thing. That banner. Family means forever. Unless you're inconvenient. Unless you're easy to ignore. Unless you don't fit the matching t-shirts. I remembered a dinner a few months ago. Just me, Gray, and our parents. Someone had mentioned a reunion. I'd lit up. Said that would be amazing. Even offered to help. Said they could host it at my house. Gray had laughed. No one's really up for that this year. My mom had agreed. Too much work. They looked me in the eye and lied, and then they planned it anyway in my house without me. They didn't know I'd come home early. They were going to wish I hadn't. There's a word that's followed me round since birth. Like a name tag I never agreed to wear. That word is disappointment. Not dramatic. Not rebellious. just disappointing. I didn't make a scene. I didn't fail out of school. I didn't get arrested or join a cult or wreck a car. I just failed to be what they hoped I would be, which from what I can gather was either a second version of my brother or no child at all. Growing up, no one ever said we didn't want a second child. But they didn't have to. The energy was unmistakable. I was the family's limited edition mistake, unplanned, unbalanced. And tragically a girl, apparently. If there had to be a second child, they would have preferred another boy because Gray needed a playmate. And also, boys just get each other. I got that speech once when I was 7. I don't remember who said it, maybe an aunt. But it stuck. They never outright told me I was born wrong. But I picked it up from the way my mom sighed when I wanted a doll instead of a toy truck. From how my dad paused when people asked if they were done having kids, like he wasn't sure how to phrase the accident. That was me. From how my brother introduced me as his sister with the same tone people use when they say I have food poisoning, and if being born was mistake number 1. Everything after that was just a continuation of the theme. I like the wrong things. I read too much. I didn't care about math. I was into anatomy and biology and wanted to learn how the body worked. Not because I wanted to become a surgeon, which might have impressed them, but because I liked helping people move again after they'd broken something wrong again. I had the wrong friends, quiet kids, artsy kids, kids who didn't play varsity sports or volunteer for debate tournaments. My brother said once that I attracted weirdos. My parents laughed at the time. I laughed, too. I was 12, Gray, meanwhile, was everything they wanted. Smart, confident, competitive. He won awards like it was a full-time job, played sports, got straight A's, went to a fancy college, and got a degree in pre-law, which he liked to bring up every time I mentioned being tired. Try staying up all night writing constitutional law essays. I was teaching someone how to walk again after spinal surgery. Gray didn't matter. He was the golden child. I was the accidental daughter with the inconvenient opinions and 0 career glamour later. When I chose physiotherapy, the feedback was swift and subtle. So, not a real doctor then. That's still great. It's good to have a trade. I guess it's kind of like massage therapy, right? For the record. No, it's not. Not remotely. I graduated with honors. No one came to the ceremony. Gray had a meeting and my parents said they'd already done the whole college thing once. I bought my own house 2 years after that. It took me years to save the down payment while paying off student loans. When I called to tell my mom, she didn't say congratulations. She said, "Are you sure you can afford something that big?" The house became my one small win, my place, my rules. At least that's what I thought. Meanwhile, Gray got married to Mar, who was lovely in that terrifyingly efficient kind of way. They had a kid, then a second. My mom cried when the second one was born. Not because she was emotional, because she was relieved it was a boy. Gray's wife made it onto the family group text before I did. But still, I showed up. I helped when Dad threw out his back. I drove over with heat packs. When Mom tweaked her knee, I adjusted her brace and showed her exercises. When Uncle Don couldn't sit through church anymore, I treated his sciatica, cousins, in-laws, neighbors, nieces. If someone was hurting and their insurance wouldn't cover enough sessions, I got the call. I rarely got a thank you. I never got paid. Gray, of course, had real responsibilities. Stressful job. A mortgage, a family. He did rec league softball on the weekends and still managed to be the one who shows up even when all he did was bring a six-pack and talk about taxes. Once he pulled a muscle at practice. I worked on his shoulder every week for over a month. He told me I was pretty good at this stuff. Like I hadn't spent 6 years in school to become licensed. I wish I could say I had a breaking point, that I stood up and said no more. But the truth is, I didn't. I just kept giving because they were family, because it was easier than arguing, because it felt like if I stopped being useful, I'd disappear entirely. And then came the dinner. Just the four of us, me, Gray, Mom, Dad. Nothing fancy. Grilled chicken, salad, polite small talk. Somewhere between clearing the plates and dessert, my dad said, "We should really do a big family reunion one of these years." I remember lighting up. I said that would be amazing, offered to help organize, said they could do it at my place. "I've got the space now," Gray laughed. "Yeah, but not this year. Too much going on." Mom nodded. "No one really has the energy for that." I let it go. A few weeks later, I asked again, just casually in a text, "Any updates on that reunion idea?" Mom replied, "No." I didn't go anywhere. "Maybe next summer." I believe them. Of course I did. Because even when you're used to being disappointed, you never really expect the people who raised you to lie to your face. But they did. And while I was helping people's parents walk again, mine were planning a 90-person party in my house without me, right down to the matching t-shirts. I didn't know why I drove away. Not at first. I mean, there were at least a dozen more dramatic options available to me in the moment. I could have marched into my backyard, ripped down the Family Means Forever banner, and used it to strangle someone with matching DNA. I could have walked in and screamed loud enough to curdle the dip. I could have called the cops. It was technically my house, but instead, I drove like a coward. Or maybe, just like someone who didn't trust her own voice not to crack. I didn't want to cry in front of them. That was the truth. I didn't want to hear myself ask, "Why wasn't I invited?" and see them shrug. Or worse, laugh. I didn't want to watch their eyes dart, avoiding mine. Pretending I was overreacting, I didn't want to give them that. They'd already taken everything else. So, yeah, I drove until I hit a cheap hotel with clean sheets and no questions. Checked in, took a shower so hot it could have melted plaster, curled up on top of the covers with my knees to my chest like a cliche, and tried to fall asleep before my chest caved in. Spoiler, I didn't sleep. But I did survive the night barely, thanks to some angry chewing of stale peanut M&Ms from the vending machine and one deeply sarcastic text I typed out and never sent. The next morning, I checked out, not because I'd had a change of heart, but because my suitcase was still in the trunk, and my toothbrush was somewhere under my car seat, and because it was still my house. They'd already erased me from the party. I wasn't going to let them erase me from my own life, too. When I got home, everything looked perfect. Too perfect. Cushions fluffed, counters clean. My folded throw blanket placed just a little too carefully over the arm of the couch. Like someone had Googled how to reset a crime scene. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it. I dropped my keys in the bowl, took off my shoes, and sat down at the kitchen table like a ghost in my own life. Then, I opened my laptop and pulled up my banking app. I'd been sending $300 a month to my parents since I started working full-time. No, my parents never asked out loud. But once I got licensed, there were a few too many comments about high grocery prices and just needing a little help right now. They acted like it was temporary. But somehow it became tradition. Not anymore. One click, transfer canceled. Then I opened my work calendar and started cleaning house. That follow-up deleted. And Laura's plantar fasciitis check-in gone. The cousin with shin splints who texts you up like, "I'm on call for free leg pain management." Goodbye. And then there was Gray. 10 o'clock a.m. Monday shoulder mobility check. Quick one before the big game. I hit delete. At 10:04 p.m. my phone lit up. Gray. I didn't even sigh. I just answered. "Hey," I said. "You canceled my session." "Yes." "Why?" "I'm busy." He was quiet for a second. "Busy how?" "It's just a quick tune-up. My game's tomorrow. Remember?" "Yep." "So, you know how my shoulder's been acting up. I'm sure you can find someone or stretch or whatever. You're mad?" "Nope," I said, leaning back in my chair. "Just busy." There was that pause. That slightly squirmy silence where someone's trying to figure out what they missed because they know they missed something, but you're not giving them the answer key. "You good?" He asked finally. Totally, I said. We sat in that strange standoff a moment longer before I ended the call. An hour later, Mom called. She didn't mention the party. Not once. Just talked about the weather and how Gray's been stressed. About the tournament and how she's been watching reruns of that home renovation show she likes. I listened, asked how their week had been. Oh, nothing special, she said. We stayed in. I almost laughed, but instead, I just said, cool, and let her go. The next morning, my phone rang again. This time, he didn't sound smug or casual. He sounded like someone trying to keep his voice level while everything hurt. Are you home? He asked. Why? I'm coming by. I'm working, please. He said. I think I messed something up. I can't lift my arm right, and my back's starting to seize. I can't even hold my kid right now. Marlo's freaking out. That sucks. He went quiet. Are you seriously not going to help me? I'm not available. A beat? Then did something happen? I didn't answer. He exhaled like it cost him. Is this about the look? If you're upset, just say it. I didn't say anything. He kept going. We were going to tell you eventually. It was supposed to be a joke. So, I didn't say anything. It was Mira's idea at first. He blurted, okay, like just a stupid idea. And then Mom got involved and it just kind of turned into a thing. And honestly, we thought maybe you'd show up and it would be funny, like a surprise. I let the silence sit there. I could hear him squirming under it. Finally, he asked, you knew? I took a sip of my coffee. No idea what you're talking about. That was it. I didn't say anything else. He kept waiting, kept trying to get a reaction, like maybe I'd finally crack and yell or cry or ask why they did it. But I didn't. Eventually, he hung up. Later that night, Mom called again, said Gray was screaming in pain and it wasn't fair to punish the whole family just because I was sensitive. I said, I'm busy, and hung up. The next day, I got a message from my Uncle Dennis, the only one with a conscience, or at least a functioning filter. He said he just assumed I wasn't coming, that he didn't know I hadn't been invited. I thought it was weird you weren't there. Your name wasn't on the list. Just wanted you to know that. I noticed. He forwarded the invite. 92 names, not mine. I sat there looking at that number like it could explain something. It didn't, but I saved the email anyway. I didn't respond. I didn't answer their calls. I didn't block them. Not yet. It wasn't revenge. Not really. It was just space. They clearly wanted space, and I was giving it to them. I didn't count the missed calls until my phone stopped letting new ones come in. The final tally sat at 105. I didn't answer any of them. Gray texted 3 times a day for the first week. His shoulder was getting worse. His back was on fire. He couldn't even sleep. One message said, can't lift Owen at all. Mare's pissed. Another said, can't believe you're being this petty. Sure you can, I thought. You just didn't think I had it in me. By the end of the second week, the messages got longer, whinier. He'd started seeing another therapist, one that charged real money and didn't answer texts or throw and dry needling for free. Apparently, $140 a session is a ripoff. Poor thing. Maybe he'll have to sell one of his golf watches or, God forbid, tap into his stock portfolio. Mom called every 2 days and when I didn't pick up, she left voicemails. Long ones. I just don't understand how you can turn your back on your family like this. We've always been there for you. Have you? Gray is in agony. Sweetheart, you're punishing him over a joke. What kind of person holds a grudge like this? One who's done being used? And your father's knee is acting up again. We're not asking you to work for free. Just help us a little, right? Just like I always did. Quietly, gratefully, invisibly. Then the voicemail stopped and they showed up. I saw their car first, pulled up crooked in front of my driveway, like they'd stop halfway through, deciding whether this was a good idea. My parents stood on the porch like missionaries selling guilt. Mom held a canvas tote bag like it was a peace offering. Dad wore the jacket he only ever put on when he wanted to seem reasonable. I opened the door. "Hi," Mom said, all tight smells and forced warmth. "Can we come in?" "No." Her smile cracked a little. Dad cleared his throat. "We just want to talk." "You're talking?" They stood there like they expected me to step aside. I didn't. "I'm sure you've noticed," Dad said finally, "that your transfer didn't go through. That's usually what happens when it's canceled." "Well, we were just wondering if it was a mistake," he said carefully. "You've always helped out. And your mother and I are on a fixed income now. It's been a bit of a strain. Then maybe Gray should help out." They didn't answer. I let the silence bloom. Heavy and sharp. "He's got 2 kids," Mom tried. "And a 6-figure salary and no student debt and a fully remodeled kitchen. And I'm the one covering your bills." "Don't say it like that," she said. "You make it sound like you're being exploited." I tilted my head. "Aren't I?" Her eyes narrowed. "This isn't you. You're not this cold. This is me," I said simply. "You'd just like me better when I was exhausted and quiet and useful." Mom shifted the bag on her arm like she'd forgotten she was holding it. "So that's it then. You're cutting us off." "I'm cutting off the version of me that let this go on." Dad exhaled. "You're being emotional." "No," I said and smiled faintly. "Now I'm being rational." They didn't get it. Of course they didn't. They stood there blinking like someone had unplugged their only outlet. I didn't slam the door. I just closed it gently. They didn't knock again. Over the next few weeks, the messages slowed down. Gray's updates turned bitter. "This new therapist sucks. He doesn't even do dry needling." "I'm done." My shoulders racked. "You win?" I didn't reply. One of my cousins messaged me asking if I was okay. I told her I was fine, just busy. She sent back a thumbs up, nothing else. Apparently, the family gossip channels had kicked into high gear. I started getting weird. Passive-aggressive likes on my Instagram stories from people I hadn't spoken to in years. One posted a quote about forgiveness and tagged nobody. Settle. Dad texted me once to say they were thinking of selling the house and downsizing. Not asking for money. Not directly. Just floating it. A week later, Mom left a voicemail saying Gray wouldn't be coming by for Sunday dinner anymore. His therapy bills were eating into their savings. She sounded tired. Not sad, just worn out by the realization that Gray was never going to take over the job I'd been doing in silence. Eventually, she stopped calling, too. And then something unexpected happened. People started reaching out. Not to pressure me, but to apologize. It began with a message from my cousin Lacey. She's not dramatic, not the type to get involved in anything unless it directly affects her Spotify playlists. "Hey, is it true you weren't invited to the reunion in your own house? That's honestly disgusting. Sorry, I had no idea." I stared at the screen for a long time before typing, "Yeah, it's true." She didn't try to explain it away. Just wrote, "You deserve better. They owe you so much more than an apology." After that, it was like a crack ran through the family tree. Aunt Jasmine messaged me next. She said she thought I was out of town when I didn't show, said she felt sick when she found out the truth. My cousin Anthony admitted he just assumed I was inside helping with something and now he felt like an idiot. Someone, I still don't know who, forwarded a screenshot from a family group chat. Gray had written, "It was just a casual thing, we didn't think she'd want to come anyway. Kind of funny TBH. And below that, someone replied, "Dude, it was in her house." Suddenly, people were choosing sides. And they weren't choosing his. A few relatives called, not to guilt me, but to genuinely apologize. One said, "If anyone had done that to me, I'd have burned the banner and the t-shirts." Another said, "Honestly, it makes sense now. You always did more for everyone." It wasn't a revolution. No one spray-painted shame on my parents' garage. But the shift was real. Invitations that used to go to them now came to me directly. Some cousins stopped responding to my mom's group messages altogether. A few even said they'd reconsidered visiting over the holidays. Apparently, guilt is contagious when enough people admit they were looking the other way. And Gray, he went quiet, radio silent. Maybe because the new therapist charges a cancellation fee. Maybe because being a golden child doesn't hit the same when people stop clapping. One relative who'd been freeloading physio sessions for years finally messaged me and said, "If you ever open a private practice, I want to be your first paying customer." I said, "Thanks, I'm fully booked now." And that was that. No speech, no breakdown, no reconciliation moment where someone finally sees my worth over Sunday dinner. Just a quiet shift. Just people showing me in small ways that they finally understood. And for once, I didn't have to explain myself. It's been a year. I'm no contact with my parents and Gray completely. No calls, no texts, nothing. I heard through the grapevine that my parents finally sold the house, downsized to something smaller, apparently. Their fixed income felt a lot tighter once my $300 monthly donations dried up. Gray predictably didn't step in, too busy funding his golf weekends and shoulder massages from someone who charges full price. Meanwhile, I've never been more at peace. I still don't give out free therapy to anyone. And funny thing, people respect me more for it. I actually get invited to events now. Cousins check in and loop me in on birthday plans. People say things like, "We missed you last year." And this time they mean it. It's quiet and solid in mine. No more begging for space at a table I helped build. But sometimes I wonder, was I right not to confront them that day? Was it wrong to just walk away? Or was that the only way they'd ever hear me? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell.